think about the challenges of the workforce of the future, technology is enabling vastly different modes of engagement when it comes to people. Through technologies like Glassdoor, which is essentially like a Yelp for companies, candidates are evaluating companies to work for. So as an employer, you have to be much more cognizant of your brand so contingent workers are deciding where I want to go. Okay. Then we have artificial intelligence, and how much time do we have? We can talk about this all day. But the definition of what a worker is, what a job is being broken up into a piece of a job, a piece of a task. And companies are deciding what's the best way to get that piece done. So it's no longer, does it have to be a person, but can I leverage a cognitive computing application or a robot to do that piece of that activity? If it's routinized, if it can even conceivably be automated, it will be. Okay? So we have globalization creating a globally competitive marketplace. We have technology enabling different sorts of elements of artificial intelligence to increase and automate processes. And then we have demographics. And I think the demographic challenges are really incredibly significant. Not just that we have an older workforce that's going to be working longer because health is advancing. People are going to be working longer, so we're going to have to be ready for an aging contingent workforce. But also where those centers of labor force growth are shifting all over the world. Like we're looking at Africa. Africa is going to be the next engine of global growth because they're able to adapt to newer technologies more quickly because they don't have legacy costs. And with those demographic changes are going to be a willingness to challenge pre-existing hierarchies of how work needs to be done. I use the example all the time that we who are older can remember when we sent our first email. That experience, and that is a metaphor for how work needs to get done, how a job looks like, what it looks like to hire somebody. Well, people like us and people who have that worldview are going to be retiring or shifting out of the workforce at some point or moving on from leadership roles. And then people who grew up with technology being a key component of their life, where their whole life is done through this little machine, are going to be making decisions. And they have friends that they've never met, who they've met through that little toy, and they feel are just as real as you and I. And that feeling and that belief is going to influence the way that they leverage all of these new tools to engage in work. So this notion of being full-time or contingent, being offshore or nearshore is no longer going to exist because the very definition of what it is to relate to another person is fundamentally changing. So that piece, that technology piece, really creates a lot of interesting opportunities for the industry as a whole, and tremendous challenges as the current status quo is evolving into the distance, into the distant past. It's a very exciting time to be in this business. That's certainly for sure. Certainly, the number one piece of advice I would give to companies as they expand internationally is to go in with open eyes and be willing to think about the requirements of your local market. A lot of people go with this misguided notion that what works in one country will work in another. There are legislative rules, there are tax rules and ramifications. There are regional differences in the level of sophistication in the supply base. So are the solutions that you have in place even something that could be digested by the market? And that's a real problem for a lot of companies as they put in place some VMS technologies, MSP technologies. They go into these regions where the level of penetration and the level of sophistication in the supply base is very mature. And they find themselves struggling mightily because suppliers have a lot of options on who they provide talent to, especially now. The best piece of advice I could give would be to understand the local market, understand exactly what problems you're trying to solve, and develop policies and procedures and a system vision that does nothing but satisfy that immediate problem. And then the rest of it will take care of itself.